Hi, everyone, and welcome to F-Bomb Friday, where we will bring you Michigan-only folklore, fables, fiction, and frights. I am your host, Tracy Preston, along with my husband, Todd Preston. Hey, hon.
Hey, baby.
Let's hit it. This is Season 5, Episode 6, The Ada Witch. As the story is told, it's the late 1800s in the small town of Ada, just east of the big city of Grand Rapids. A young bride by the name of Sarah cautiously slithers out of bed, careful not to wake her sleeping husband. She creeps to the hall tree where her coat is hanging, and as quiet as a mouse, she puts her coat on over her white nightgown, slips her feet into her boots, and quietly leaves the house out of her back door, as she has done several times before. Although Sarah was as quiet as she could possibly have been, her exit from the marital bed and house did not go unnoticed. You see, her husband, suspecting that his young and beautiful bride was being unfaithful, was only pretending to be asleep. He waits a minute after she leaves through the back door. Then he peers out of the window and sees his wife making her way to the road. He follows. The night air is chilled. A full moon hangs in the night sky, and frost covers the ground. Sarah, unsuspecting that she is being followed, is full of excitement, her heart nearly thumping through her chest as she steps off the road and into the woods. The anticipation is almost too much for her to bear. Stealthily, her husband is not far behind. Through the shaded trees, the moonlight gives way to the silhouette of a man. It was Sarah's beau. Her secret midnight lover patiently waits for her. As soon as she lays eyes on the man waiting for her, Sarah is overcome with joy as she runs to her lover. They embrace and kiss passionately as if there were no tomorrow. At this point, the husband has seen enough.
What the fuck?
Enraged, he leapt from the thicket, grabbing and striking his wife with violent blows. Desperately, Sarah's lover tries to subdue the angered husband, but to no avail. And then, a quiet pause in time as Sarah falls to the frosty ground. The husband, now furious and grief-stricken with what he's done, now turns his sights to Sarah's lover. The two men battle for an eternity, it seems, as Sarah's lifeless body grows colder by the second. Punch after punch, kick after kick, swollen and bloodied, the two men can barely stand, each refusing to relent. Both men die at the tragic scene from their injuries. The young bride's restless spirit is said to still roam the area in Finley Cemetery on 2 Mile Road in Ada, where she was supposedly buried. It's said that Sarah's body was found on Honey Creek Road, but it's at Seidman Park, where Sarah was allegedly murdered by her husband. The legend of the Ada Witch has been popular in western Michigan for decades and decades. The story was first published by author Gary Aberell in the book Haunted Houses of Grand Rapids, which was released in 1982. The book was reissued again in 1994 and regained popularity in 1999 with the release of the movie The Blair Witch Project. Although the stories are unrelated, however, it sparked the interest of amateur researchers, ghost hunters, and paranormal investigators. Reports of encounters with the Ada Witch include hearing a ghostly fight, feeling a presence, being tapped on the shoulder to turn around to find no one is there. Sightings of a beautiful woman in white, sights of a disfigured woman with cuts and slashes from her injuries, a woman crying or shrieking, and mists with blue or green orbs. For those who do not know, in a spiritual context, orbs are circular lights, anomalies, often associated with paranormal beliefs, suggesting the presence of spirits or angels in photographs. In photographs, it's nearly impossible to prove the validity, as orbs can be discounted as bugs or dust. If you spot one in real time, it is self-illuminating, moves with a purpose, and or has no logical explanation. It may be a spiritual orb. In this case, the reports of the orbs were blue or green in color. According to the, quote, Love to Know website, blue is the color of being shy and protective, while green is the color of healing. Perhaps Sarah's spirit is shy, protective, and still trying to heal after all these years. The name Sarah has followed the legend since the beginning. Over the years, she was dubbed the Ada Witch, but nothing in the story suggests that she was a witch or that she practiced witchcraft. It is assumed that witch was chosen as the Ada spirit didn't have the same impact during a campfire storytelling. At the same point, during the hype of the legend between the 80s and 90s, it was theorized that the spirit was of Sarah McMillan, a local woman who died in 1870 and was buried at Finley Cemetery in Ada. People paid tribute to Sarah McMillan's headstone and grave, leaving gifts, flowers, and trinkets. In 2003, a group of paranormal investigators disproved that Sarah McMillan was the Ada Witch. Although Sarah had died at a young age, and around the approximate year, she had actually died of typhoid fever and was not murdered by her husband. Shortly after the word had spread to the public about the misidentification, Sarah McMillan's headstone was broken and vandalized. Like, why?
Right? People are jerks.
Why desecrate an innocent corpse's headstone?
Yeah.
That's totally silly. Gratefully, the community rallied and a local tombstone business donated a new headstone for Sarah. So, who was Sarah and who is the Ada Witch? Was she real? Or is the story of this restless spirit just an urban legend? Although the story lends itself to a Shakespearean tragedy, many believe and swear to their encounters. What a great little piece of folklore, hun. Tell me more.
As I was doing research on this story, I came to find that there are over 100 variations of this story. So I stuck with the most popular version. But just to give you an example, one of the versions of the story was actually the other way around. It was the woman who killed her husband and his lover.
Now, see, that makes more sense to me,
Right?
right? That, back in this day and age, the woman was well trained
Right.
to obey her husband. So I can see, a man slipping out, meeting his lover out there.
Yeah. And this was, this area was open to hunting quite often. So many of the accounts that were reported were by hunters. They're out there in the woods by themselves, and I don't know, maybe they already knew the story. We did read that one story where the guy didn't know anything about it, or at least he said he didn't know anything about it until he got home. His wife filled him in on the story because she was a lifelong resident of the area. But, there's lots of stories of hunters being out there and feeling like all of a sudden there's a presence. They've been tapped on the shoulder, they look, and there's nobody there. The cool thing with some of the sightings were the orbs. I think the orbs are a really cool thing. I've actually seen an orb before in real life. I was working in Marshall at the time, and I stepped outside to take a break in the early morning, and I looked over towards the woods back there, and there was this big glowing orange orb. It wasn't the sun. The sun was in a completely different direction. So I grabbed my phone and I took a picture of it. And I zoomed in and I zoomed in and I zoomed in, and I swear, after I zoomed in as far as I could actually see a face in the orb.
That's interesting. And I think, didn't you say, right, there's some woods out back where you used to work, right?
Yep.
And you used to see them quite often out there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Your brother's seen quite a few.
Yep. And he did take a picture, and it was pretty cool. Now, again, with the photographs, it's hard to prove anything because it could be a speck of dust or an insect flying, as soon as you take the picture or something. But I'm just saying firsthand, I've seen orbs. They can't be explained. Why would there be a light source there? It didn't make sense.
And so what was it just kind of hovering? Was it kind of bouncing around? Like, what was it doing?
It was kind of hovering a little bit, just kind of moving back and forth. And I wouldn't say it was like real drastic movements, more of a soft kind of wavy flow back and forth, but it was pretty cool. I took my phone in and showed everybody at work, and they were like, wow, that was really cool.
And you said it was orange. I wonder what orange means. So while Todd looks that up, I'm going to tell you about another story that we read about the Ada Witch. I found this quite interesting. So was, as Todd had mentioned, Ada, there's a lot of woods up there. You're a little bit more up north. And this man was talking about he was hunting. He was walking his way, making his way back out because it was getting dark when he started hearing a woman crying and yelling, and then he heard two men yelling at each other, and he actually said he saw them, and to him it looked quite real. It didn't look like they were ghosts. He could not tell that they were not real people. And so while the men were going at it, he ran over to the woman to see what he could do to help her. And he said in his story that she looked like she was fading, she was dying. And so when he went to reach down and pick her up, his hands went right through her body.
Right through her, yep.
And then, that's when he was like, oh my God, this is crazy. So that's just one other additional story. So what did you find on orange orbs?
So the orange orb is said to symbolize comfort, healing energy, and motivation.
Huh. What other kind of orbs are common, sweetie?
So red is creative relentlessness and agitation. Green, of course, we already know from the Ada Witch what people have said. Green is healing, prosperity, and appreciation for nature. Pink is openness, compassion, and affection and love. White represents purity and the presence of a guardian angel. Blue, again, associated with the Ada Witch, indicates power, protection, and guidance. Yellow signifies wisdom and encouragement. Gray and brown suggest hazards or caution, not necessarily malevolence. Purple indicates forgiveness, wisdom, psychic and spiritual development, and gold is associated with energy, tolerance, and inspiration. So I would say that gold and orange are probably pretty close. Both of their descriptions are very similar. Could have been a gold orb I saw, but to me it just seemed more orange.
Well, then it probably was orange.
Yep.
So that's cool. I've never seen an orb. I don't know how I'd feel about it.
Well, we saw that one from my brother's picture, which was...
Yeah, right. He said he was driving out in the country, and they were kind of going along the road, and so he pulled over, and... Did he take a video or just still images? I don't remember.
I think he just took still images, yeah.
But there were a couple of them, weren't there?
Yep.
So it was very, very interesting.
And Ada's not too far away. I mean, we should actually...
It's near Grand Rapids, you said, right?
Yeah. I mean, we go to Grand Rapids on occasion, so one of these times, the next time we go out there, we should stop in Ada. Check it out.
See what's going on in Ada.
From what I gather, the cemetery is definitely guarded by the police force, because of the vandalism in the past, so they regularly patrol the area because... Like I said, people are stupid,
And again, I'm just really irritated that people would get so mad that this isn't Sarah McMillan, the Ada Witch, so we're going to destroy her tombstone. That really bothers me.
Yeah.
That really bothers me.
It is cool that the community rallied and they pulled together and that tombstone company donated a new headstone for her because it's a matter of respect.
Absolutely. So supposedly... The Ada Witch is buried in Finley Cemetery, but nobody really knows her name, right? I mean,
Well, the name associated was Sarah, so I think at some point they just assumed that it was Sarah McMillan because it was the only stone that they could find with the name Sarah at the same time that the story supposedly happened, in the late 1800s. And then this group of paranormal researchers came in 2003 and quickly figured out that it wasn't her because, I mean, there was records that Sarah McMillan had died from typhoid and complications from that. So, and her husband survived, and he was not a murderer. So,
Well, and again, it could all just be folklore.
yep, I think so too.
She could, like, not even be a real person.
And it's not really a witch story because she's not a witch. It's a ghost story, and it's very reminiscent to a Shakespearean tragedy. You know, where a distraught lover
Loses his shit.
and then they all end up dying. You know, so
Right. Well, great story, hon.
well, thank you.
Good job. It also makes me wonder, have any of you, our listeners, had a run-in with the Ada Witch here in Michigan? Or have you seen any orbs? And if you have, why don't you send us your story at maliceinthemitten@gmail.com
Or you could contact us on Facebook Messenger. We'd love to hear from you.
and that would be through our Malice in the Mitten Facebook page. All right, thank you everyone for joining Todd and I for F-Bomb Friday. Do you want to sign us out, hon?
Lock your doors, lock your windows, and you better check under your bed.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
See you on Monday.